everyone. I haven't seen you for so long, and look how much you've grown. And your hair has grown long, and you've grown so tall. I can't believe it. I've got a story for you. Are you ready? Are you sitting comfortably? Yeah? Let's have our story then. Farmer Frank planted his pumpkin seeds. They were tiny, tiny, tiny little seeds. He placed every single one of them in a long trench, and then he covered them up with soil, and he waited. And he waited. And he waited a little bit longer. And eventually, tiny, tiny little green shoots started to come up through the earth. Then Farmer Frank thought, I'm going to have to put a net. I'm going to get a big net, and I'm going to put it over my pumpkin patch to make sure that the birds, can you birds with me? That the birds don't fly down and peck the little seeds. And that's exactly what he did. And then he waited a little bit longer. And he waited. And he waited. And eventually, the little green shoots grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And then Farmer Frank thought, I'm going to take the net off because they're getting so big, they're going to get trapped underneath the net. So he took the net away, and then it was starting to be summertime. So some days it was really, really hot. So can you pretend to be hot? And you go, it's really hot. Some days it was very windy. Can you go like that and pretend that the wind is blowing? And some days it rained, because it does rain even in summer. So on the days it was too hot, Farmer Frank got his hosepipe and he watered down all the pumpkin patch so they had plenty to drink. When it was really windy, all the great big leaves that were starting to grow, he put them all over the pumpkins so that they kept safe. And as the little flowers were starting to form, the leaves were going to protect the flowers. And when it was too wet, Farmer Frank got his big spade and his welly boots, and he dug a great big trench, and all the rain ran away, and it didn't make the pumpkins all soggy and mushy. Anyway, month went by after month, after month, after month, and suddenly the great big orange pumpkins, great big round ones, could be seen underneath the leaves. So Farmer Frank went every day, and he would pick up some of the leaves and he would look underneath, and then he would think, almost ready, almost ready. But when Farmer Frank had gone to bed at night, the pumpkins used to talk to each other, and there were some conversations going on, and the pumpkins started to say, I wonder what's going to happen to us when we're picked, when we're big enough and we're strong enough, we'll be going to market. And there was one really big pumpkin in the middle of the patch, and his name was Parry the pumpkin. And Parry said, I want to be the scariest, ugliest pumpkin ever. I want to scare so many people. I don't even want a light inside me. I feel really dark and really mean and really horrible. And all the other little pumpkins who looked up to Parry started saying, oh, and me, I want to be a big, ugly, horrible pumpkin as well. And then they started to realise that two nice little pumpkins called Penny and Poppy weren't saying very much at all. And they started to ask them, they started to say, Penny, Poppy, why aren't you getting all excited? Why, we're so glad that we're big and strong and we're going to leave this pumpkin patch. And Penny and Poppy were a little bit sad, and they said, well, but we like being here with Farmer Frank. He's looked after us so well. He planted us. He put that lovely net over us to stop the birds coming and attacking us. He's watered us and he's protected us from the wind, and he's made the rain go away. When we were getting all soggy, he was digging trenches for us, and we don't want to be nasty, scary pumpkins. We want to be nice pumpkins. We want to show people that it's good to be kind, that it's good to be nice, and it's good to like the light and not the dark. And the big pumpkins, but look, they started to laugh, and they, you two, you don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, things quietened down just for a few more days, and then early one morning, Farmer Frank came trudging through the field. Let's pretend it's a little bit muddy. We got our wellies on. We go. That's what it sounds like when your wellies are going in the mud. And he walked over to the pumpkin patch, and he pulled aside the great big leaves, and he spied Penny and Poppy, and he gently picked them, and he started to walk away with one under each of his arms. Oh, the other pumpkins thought, what's going on? Why have Penny and Poppy been taken? What's going on? Anyway, they were very quiet for another day, and then eventually all the helpers on the farm came along, and they started to pick the other pumpkins. They chopped the stalks, and they picked them up gently, because you've got to be very gentle with a pumpkin. They seem quite hard, but if you drop them, they can crack open and they make a terrible mess. So they put their gloves on, and they were very gently picking up the pumpkins, and they were putting them into the trailer. Anyway, this went on all day because there were a lot of pumpkins. And just as we were getting to sundown, the trailer was full, and they felt it was being attached to the tractor, and then they started to move along. Now the tractor driver had to stop at the farmhouse just for a few minutes on his way, and as the trailer stopped, it was quite dark, and they realised that Farmer Frank was sitting on his porch with his little grandchildren, and he was telling them a story. And they could see Penny and Poppy at the side of Farmer Frank. And Farmer Frank was pointing to Penny and Poppy as he was telling the story. And he said to his grandchildren, you see, he said, the thing about pumpkins is this. Lots of people these days make them into scary things and think of creepy crawlies and monsters and ghosts and really not very nice things. But he said, if you really think of a pumpkin, it tells us the most wonderful story. Because first of all, pumpkins were created by God, as was everything else and everyone else. But God made everything good and happy and glad and light. God didn't make anything dark. The darkness happened. The people, the humans, the men and women and the boys and girls, turned against God, and they started to turn his light and goodness into darkness and scary things and nastiness. But God sent his son, Jesus, to come into the world to bring back the light. And because people couldn't really be friends with God before Jesus came, because they didn't know what to do, Jesus came and made it right. But Jesus stands for everything that's good and everything that's right and everything that's happy and light. And Jesus actually said, very special words, he said, I am the light of the world. The world is quite a dark place sometimes, it can be a little bit scary, but Jesus said, I am the light of the world. So Farmer Frank carried on telling his grandchildren that when he had carved Penny and Poppy, he had made their eyes look like stars because he wanted to remember all of God's beautiful creation. And when he cut the top off, he said it was like us having to open our minds and think a little bit about what the Bible says. And then when he scooped all the middle out, I know some of you have been carving pumpkins because I've seen photos of you, but you've got to scoop all the mush and the muck and the sloppy bits out of the inside. And it's a little bit like that. When we've had a good think, when we've opened our minds and we've had a think, and we understand who Jesus is, all that muck and the mush and the slimy bits can come out of us. God takes them away. And we've got our eyes like stars that we can see. We can see how good God really is. And Farmer Frank said, after that, he said, I've cut their noses to look like a cross because Jesus died on a cross and came back to life again that we can be friends with God. And he said, I've given them the biggest, best smiles ever because when somebody knows Jesus as their special friend, they can't help but smile. It doesn't mean that they're always going to be really, really happy and laughing and jolly because sometimes things still go wrong. But on the inside, they are really, really happy because they know Jesus. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that story. I'm going to show you in a minute what Penny and Poppy looked like when Farmer Frank had carved them. Be safe, have a lovely time this weekend and next weekend with fireworks, and I'll see you all soon.